Hello. It's test week, chapters 8, 9, and 10. Got some cats. Would you like to see a cat? I'm going to show you a cat. Which cat's it going to be? Alright, guess it's George again. Come on, George. This is George. He's a fluffer. Here you go, George. That's a good boy. See? Orange cat. Alright, goodbye, George. Go away. We love him. So we're reviewing chapters 8, 9, and 10. And what do we need to consider here? What we're going to build today, I'd like to build the big tree diagram that you've seen on the board when we were still in the classroom. Get out of here with those kitties. Distracted me. I got cats here. What we're going to do now is we're going to consider what are all the processes we've built up over the last few months, and how do we decide what's the process we're going to use? Because that can be one of the bigger challenges in the upcoming test that you're going to have. What is it, open Thursday through Saturday or whatever? On that test, one type of question you'll have is what kind of procedure is appropriate here. What's the first thing we're going to have? We're going to be given some data. So hopefully you're going to make this with me. You might as well go ahead and make it now. I don't, make it along with me here. So you're going to have some data, and the first question is it what kind of data is it? Is that data qualitative? That is it going to deal with proportions? Or is that data quantitative? And that is it going to deal with means? And I'm going to put some symbols here. Proportions, that is P, and means, that is mu. Let's consider for a second what test statistic usually goes along with what kind of process. Well, if it's qualitative stuff, I'm going to use another color here. Qualitative is usually Z stuff. The tests all have Z in their name. Quantitative, almost always T stuff. There's one case where it's not T stuff. I'll make a little exception for that down here in the corner later on. You're going to want to size it about like this too. I hope I can size this thing right. So it's qualitative versus quantitative. It's qualitative, it's proportions, it's P. It's going to be Z stuff. If it's quantitative, that's means. The symbol we use for that is mu. That's T stuff. Okay, and then the question is, are we asked here to go all the way up here? Are we asked to estimate? Or are we asked to test? Are we asked to estimate or are we asked to test? Okay, well, if we're estimating, we're going to be making, well, what are we going to be doing if we're asked to estimate? We're going to be making an interval. If we're asked to test, it's obviously a significance test. So we're going to either estimate or we're going to test. Okay, so if it's estimating, it's an interval. If it's testing, doing a significance test. And then the last question we have, is it one sample? Or is it two samples? Well, let's think about that. If it's one sample, we're talking about estimating a proportion from a single sample. What is that? Let's get my lamp on here. That is a one sample, Z interval, for P. One sample Z interval for P. What's that look like? Go back to 8.2. Check that out. Let me zoom in there so you can see what I'm doing there. Let me show you how I'm marking this. Estimate or test. Estimate or making an interval. Test and I'm doing significance test stuff. I'm going to say one sample, and I'm going to name the test. Two samples, where's that from? That's 10.1. That's a two sample Z interval. Put a little hyphen in there for P1 minus P2. You got to be able to name these procedures. So what have we got done there? We've got done exactly 1/4 of this branch, 1/4 of this table rather. Zoom back out, and let's see where we were at. We were talking about, what were we talking about? Qualitative stuff, proportions, P. And now we've filled out the estimate stuff. We can estimate where a single proportion is, and that's what you see on the news every day when you're looking. Well, we don't have it as much anymore. But when this, maybe this stuff calms down and we get to thinking about, the important stuff like political elections, you'll see proportions of voters voting for this candidate or that candidate, and you'll be looking at one sample Z intervals for P. Excuse me. Now back to the testing side. Well, again, testing, you're going to notice with this, we're going to have always this one or two sample consideration. Again, one sample or two samples. My handwriting is going to degrade as I go through this, so that top branch is going to be the prettiest one. Use that for your template of how to do this. Excuse me. One sample test. Where does that come from? That came from 9.2. Two sample stuff came from, again, 10.1. What is this? This is if we do one sample, talking about Z stuff for proportions, we're testing. This is a one sample Z test for P, or also a two sample Z test for P1 minus P2 to see if those two proportions are different. Alright, so we've got the top of this filled out. We've got, when we're dealing with proportions, that is qualitative data. We're going to have to do this stuff. Great. You can write some formulas in here. Do I have another color I can write some formulas in? Ooh, let me look. Got a blue pen for you. What are these formulas going to look like? I'll try and speed this up, sorry. One sample Z interval is going to be P hat plus or minus Z star square root P hat 1 minus P hat over N. So you can write those formulas in there. I would take the time to go back and write those formulas for the sake of this video and your reading and my handwriting. I'm going to omit that. But one of the great things you could do is you could put those tests or intervals right below it in a different color. Let's go down to the bottom side on quantitative stuff, means. Again, we could do one of two things. We could, what could we do? We could estimate, or we could test. Oh, I hope I have enough room here. Let's see if we can get this done. If we're doing quantitative stuff, that is T stuff. We're trying to estimate a mean. We're going out and we're getting a number from a bunch of people, adding it together, dividing by the total number of people, and we're saying, okay, here's our estimate of the mean, and up or down, here we go. All right. So what are we going to have? We're going to have one or two sample estimates of the mean, or mean difference. We're going to have the one sample case, or the two sample case. And what are these things called? These things are called T. One sample. It's T stuff, so T interval. For mu, or 2 sample t interval for the difference in those means. Cool. Again, estimate, we're going to be making an interval. Test, we're going to be doing a test of significance. Okay. And let's finish it out down here at the bottom. We're going to be testing. We could do 1 or 2 sample tests for the mean. 1 sample, 2 sample, and we could have the 1 sample t-test for mu, or the 2 sample t-test for the difference in those means, mu1 minus mu2. Nope, you can't see that because of my head. Okay. That's most everything. What are the couple specific little tricks? I'm gonna actually put 2 formulas on here. And why do we do t stuff? We do t stuff down here. Why do we do t stuff? We do t stuff because usually sigma is unknown. But there's this one case where we might make a 1 sample z interval for mu, and that is the case, the weird case, that if sigma is known, we're going to have that 1 sample z interval. Why do I write about this? Because they might ask you about a sample size question. I don't know if they're going to do this, but they used to ask about sample size questions, and it used to look like, you know, x bar plus or minus z star sigma over radical n. And you might, maybe, would have to solve a margin of error question about this. So I'm going to put that as a rare thing down here in the corner. There you go. So let me back out for a moment and look at all this for you. You need a document like this. As you're going through your reviews, especially the Chapter 9 and 10 reviews, you're going to want something like this in your hand so you can help make these decisions. Let's finish writing where all these were from in the book. This is 8.3, this is 10.2, this is 9.3, and this is 10.2. Over here, sigma known, this is another goofy 8.3 situation. One other thing I want to write here are your conditions. You always have random and you always have independent, but let's write about the normal conditions. Normal. And how they're assessed in these 2 cases. Let's talk about the normal condition, because that's one of the things you're going to miss. Look at me now. You're going to miss something about one of the normal conditions. How do we do normality up here? It's something like NP naught or NP hat or something. Something is greater than or equal to 10. Something about successes and failures at least 10. Something about that. What's normality down here? And a bunch of people missed a point on one of the 9.2 quiz. I don't remember. One of these quizzes, because they didn't talk about what those numbers meant. What is normality down here? You could either have the population is normal, or you could have the sample size being at least 30, or you could have a box plot with no skew or outliers. 3 ways you can have normality. Again, that's one of the more commonly missed things on these tests. So there you've got a pretty good document there, I'd say, for everything we've kind of done this chapter. Make sure you can navigate it. Make sure you understand it. Again, I'm going to be on the Schoology conferences thing this afternoon at least from 1 to 2 p.m. If you need times outside of that, shoot me an email. Yeah. So, see you later. Oh, test coming up this weekend. So, Chapter 9 review. Do it. Ask me questions. See ya.